Welcome into this year's Shipper of Choice Awards presented by TriumphPay. So TriumphPay really digging in, highlighting the Shipper of Choice. It's very important to TriumphPay.
Yeah, welcome to the roast of the shipping industry.
Yeah.
We're going to crush you all. No, just kidding. This is to honor all the great shippers, how they interface with all these great LSPs, trucking companies, carriers, and what it means to be a shipper of choice. And I think like the last couple of years we've done this, we're probably going to hear a lot of common themes today, Tony.
Yeah, the themes around shipper of choice tend to be common. Take care of the drivers, keep them moving. Ultimately, that's what they want. And really, that'll be the theme you hear throughout the day. Don't let them sit around and wait at loading docks because really, time is money.
Well, Tony, when we talk about wait times, how are we looking right now? Are they
so
good?
They've actually been trending lower. We'll pull them up real quick and kind of look across how they've changed over the past years across various industries. You can see there's a lot more red on this chart than there is green. So that lower wait times are shortening. That's a good thing from a efficiency standpoint. From shippers are becoming more efficient. Drivers are happy because they're moving more often. And ultimately, you're seeing things pick up a little. It's a little momentum in the right direction to become even more efficient.
Are we ready to hear the top 25? Do we want to know who won? We want to hear the 25 best. This isn't alphabetical order. This isn't in who's the best or who's the worst. This is just the top 25. We're going to go alphabetical. We got that first one up here because we're giving it to AgriMark. AgriMark, congratulations, shipper of choice. And Tony, you mentioned it. The reason they got it is they keep the trucks moving.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the theme.
Yes.
The overarching theme is they keep trucks moving. AgriMark hits the mark, and that's the thing. The next one on the list is actually a new winner for 2024, and that's Albertsons. So there's actually going to be quite a few grocers on this list. So,
which is surprising because a lot of times with grocers, you hear a lot of drivers complain about the long wait time. So to hear improvement from a company like Albertsons is fantastic. They're finally on this list. And you know what got them there? Respect and communication.
Yeah, it's treating drivers with respect, giving them that clear communication, ultimately sets shippers apart overall, and that's the case here with Albertsons.
Yeah, but Albertsons is great, but the only grocery store with this inflation we can all afford to shop at is Aldi. So Aldi's up here. Aldi, they're repeating from 2022, their second time up here. What do you think about Aldi? How did they get here?
You know, it's getting drivers in and out in a timely fashion. It's the DC to DC movement. Overall, just really keeping the drivers moving through the Aldi network and getting them in and out as efficiently as possible.
Another interesting thing was communication. That's how Albertsons got here. Yep. Same thing with Aldi. The big reporting back we heard when this voting came in was that from a business standpoint, they give feedback on carrier performance and pricing so that there's little surprise with delivery. Yeah. These things aren't complicated. And I say this every year. None of these things they're pretty obvious stuff if you think about it, from the perspective of a carrier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting the drivers out, giving the drivers the ability to use facilities, right? Enhancements to those facilities. And that, again, is the theme you see show up across all of our winners.
You know who's repeating? BASFSE. They were on here in 2023. They're back this year. And this one was about their leadership team. The leadership team there has been working with carriers. The carriers felt they were working with them to increase efficiency. Again, that's another communication thing.
Yep, it is. It's the driving efficiencies. I think that's been a theme.
Yeah.
Is driving efficiency across the supply chain, and I think right now is the time really to make those improvements when you think about where we are in the market.
Tony, here's one that I'm not familiar with. They're new to the list. Maybe I should be familiar with now. Congratulations, CertainTeed. First time on the list, CertainTeed.
Yeah, drivers moving fast. Gets them moving fast. That again, it goes back to this whole theme of the award is taking the drivers into consideration. I think that's the big key is they got to keep moving to make money, and that's what they're doing.
Wheels don't move, they don't make money. There's another one, too. Congo Brands. This is a simple one. The carrier's just like the DC. Again, they can get in, they can move. There's facilities for the drivers. There's maybe some Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
The restroom doesn't say no drivers like a lot of them do. You have to understand, if you don't really follow this space, that these shippers of choice, they are not the standard. These are an anomaly. They're an exception, and we hear that in the feedback time and time again, especially in the comments, because people seem so passionate, too. And And that's the cool thing you unlock when you become a shipper of choice is you get these very passionate partnerships as they reflected here. Costa Farms back on. They have over 20,000 truckloads a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. And what you think about is the highlights of this is the on-time, in-full flow of that, but then also driver-heavy focus, providing a driver lounge. These things aren't challenging to do, and Costa Farms hadn't been on the list for a couple years. They're back on it now because of these improvements.
I think it's because they have a shower now. It says they got showers for drivers. I mean, think how big that is when you're on the road. You're out there going over the road like these 20,000 truckloads are. You can't always find the right truck stop. Sometimes you got to park on the side of the road on the way up the freeway. Having some amenities that a driver can feel like a human being, it goes a long way, and it goes back to the top. The carriers end up hearing about it, especially in a down market like this when people have a lot of time to think. We got Don Foods on here.
First time. Right? Highlighting, again, great communications, understanding the market. I think that's another theme is it gets kind of lost in almost taking advantage of the market to your advantage, understanding how the market's moving and not taking advantage of the drivers and the carriers in this place sets these places up. I think one of the interesting things, you look at this, you see food distributors.
Yeah.
If we go back to that wait time chart, that's one of the areas where you've actually seen improvements overall. So you're seeing improvements, and it's resulting in names that are surrounded in the food industry.
What I love about the ups and downs is, too, it means they're using data, they're using real analysis, they're going on sites like FreightWaves.com, they're looking at the market, they're using the resources that we provide, Sonar, the resource we provide to shippers like them, they're looking at it and they go, we understand what's going on with these carriers, we can see there's these big ebbs and flows, we can see that there's a big drop down. Now when you're asking for higher prices, that can always be tough, but they're doing a great job. General Mills, man, they treat their carriers like core business partners, not transactional. This means that when those ebbs and the flows in the market happen, they're not cutting everybody out. They're not cutting bait and going to the spot market. They might be rebidding. They might be asking, how can we make this work? But they're having some collaboration.
Right? It's the partnership element. You can give up rate, you can lower it, but service, you start to get service, right? And it's one of those things when you we've heard partnerships a lot. I had a fireside chat the other day with TriumphPay talking about integrations and strategic partnerships. Treating your carriers like they're actually business partners sets you apart from a shipper perspective, and General Mills highlighted that.
New on the list is Heinkel, and one of the comments really stood out to me that we got back, and it said, Heinkel pushes you to be the best carrier you can be. Now think about that, because a lot of times in this business too, when you're contentious, you're pissed off at somebody, you're not going to look at like they're pushing you. You're going to think they're busting your balls or something like that, right? They're doing the right approach to that situation right there. I love to hear that they understand the actual pressures.
Yeah, absolutely. You sit there and look at it. The carrier partners, the highlight here was that they've been a breath of fresh air with who they've worked with. And
they were another driver facility one too.
Yes. Again, the common theme stays there. It's driver facilities, timeliness, efficiency, communication. They're pretty much the 4 core competencies. And guess what? If you just do it, you end up on this list.
You end up on this list. H&I, you ended up on this list in 2023, 2020. They're back on there, and they're doing the fundamentals. They appreciate their partners. They accommodate drivers. Congratulations for coming back on the list. Now, you use a lot of this stuff. Kimberly-Clark.
Yeah. You're talking took last year off. Guess what? Back on the list. So you're seeing improvements continue to make. Again, communicate very well. You're seeing establish a network that works and lean into it, use it, and you're not pushing too hard, right? And you're not keeping drivers at the dock for too long. Again, it's so simple.
You know what Niagara Bottling got and why they've been on here for a couple of years? Collaborative KPIs. That's what a number of carriers called out. They said when it comes to KPIs, they're not just siloed in their own system. You're not left in the dark as a carrier to what they really want. You actually know what is happening in there. It gives you some chance to improve. And we talk about toxicity so much, and there can be so much toxicity in the relationship between a shipper and a carrier. And if you listen to sort of what we're saying here and what that feedback is, these are all the cures to that problem.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is there's a lot of kind of negative sentiment around bottled water and the like. It just shows it's not it's the company who treats their drivers that while it creates a challenge sometimes because it's heavy.
Yes.
treating drivers right, you can still end up on this list.
Now, if drivers got to vote what Owens Corning got on here for, congratulations, second year in a row.
Yeah.
Owens Corning, what they got on here for was loading and unloading seamlessly.
Yeah.
Drivers hate when they have to wait. They have to wait 2 hours of unpaid detention.
Yeah.
If they do get detention, they often have to fight for detention. They have to fight with the broker. It's uncertainty. It causes stress. Making those ins and outs seamless means you understand your business partner, understands they have to get their wheels back on the road, and you end up getting voted for on something like this.
Absolutely, and another staple
Yes.
of the shipper of choice, PepsiCo, on here for the 5th time, so 4th year in a row, and it's shout out to
AJ?
AJ. So AJ.
AJ was called out
PepsiCo
several times in the comments about PepsiCo. So AJ, if you're here, your carrier partners love you. You were mentioned multiple times.
Yeah, it's knowing your freight, providing feedback, helping your carriers understand what they can do to be better, but also how you can help them, right?
Yes.
And it's again, it tracks back to the communication. Being able to talk between carrier and shipper ultimately sets the shipper of choices apart.
Do you want to guess what our next, I want to say competitor, I guess our next winner, S&C Electric said? Do you want to guess?
Yeah, easy to deal with.
Easy to deal with. Easy to be fair, believe in the fundamentals of the business. Again, understands the KPIs, understands the business. Schreiber Foods, same story here. And this is all the same. Understands relationship building through partnerships.
Yeah, and in this, it highlighted that other organizations in the same space don't understand that part of it, right?
Yes.
If you can take the information and the communication and you just continue to grow these relationships, it's going to set you apart. And ultimately, it's going to let your carrier partners will want to work with you even more. They're not going to abandon you when a market turns or things like that. Setting yourself apart now is the best time, and these shippers ultimately are the ones that are doing that.
And that's all partnerships is. That's code for you didn't ditch us and go to the spot market or drop our load like the second the market shift. That's all they mean here. And when you look at Southwire, same thing, true partner, they've repeated. Target Corp, this was a really interesting call out. One of the carriers said in an industry where so many decisions and relationships come down to a few cents, this low margin business, Target appreciates the insight and service they receive from carrier partners once the relationship is able to broaden beyond only economics.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting. I mean, Target caught a lot of heat, right, in 2022. Yeah. But what you see is they're still taking care of their carrier partners, even though in their case, Wall Street was on, the spotlight was shined on them, and ultimately they still took care of their carrier partners even when things were challenging overall.
We welcome another company on here, the Andersons. They've never been on Shipper Choice list. Congratulations to the Andersons. And I found this, what do you take from this? It said their entire trade team was entrepreneurial. What do you think they meant by that?
I mean, I think they're at the end of the day, they're in business to do one thing. They're acting overall. But what I think is important is they're a pleasure to work with. So it doesn't matter who they're working with, like one person or 5 people, right? Everyone's a pleasure to work with. It makes that relationship that much stronger. And that's why you see them break through and onto this list.
I was drinking a fresh, crispy Diet Coke right before I came on stage. Shout out to the Coca-Cola Company. You guys are back on the list. How many times have they been on the list now? Move that forward. There we go. They've been on here for 4 years now. Yeah. 4 years on this list. Coca-Cola doing an awesome job. I've met some of their team before. They have a great team over there. But here's what they said. They had 7-day tender lead time, 61-minute average dwell time. Really good. Again, you got to go those 2 hours free time. Every driver wants to be out within those 2 hours. We can get them out. Absorb all customer late fees. Another big one.
Yes.
A lot of companies out there. A really big box retailer you may be familiar with, who I'm not going to name, who's not on here, runs into a lot of issues with those on-time and fulls and those penalties. Focus on carrier retention on primary lanes and creating year-round growth opportunities. That's really interesting to the carriers. So what they feel like is that Coca-Cola is going to them. They're saying, hey, we have X lane. We're putting X out into the market. And they're helping them advance, position their own fleets to build out the distribution networks with them.
Yeah, I think the one that stands out to me is that 61-minute average dwell time. If you look at the national average, I think it's 114 minutes. And you look at the soft drink, if you went back and looked at the soft drinks, it's well above that. It's typically a harder, less efficient movement. to see it 61 minutes is quite impressive.
Grocery and bottling made a lot of strides this year on the
Absolutely.
list. Dow Chemical Company, they repeated. And this one's so simple. It's freight, right? They pay you on time.
It really is.
What are the rest of you doing? When are you paying them?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It really is very simple to end up on this list. Treat your drivers right, pay your carriers on time, communicate, over-communicate, and ultimately build the relationship to where it's going to be strong no matter any market conditions.
Now, congratulations to Kroger, another grocery store. They were on here in 2022. As you've seen today on the list, they've got a lot of competition from the bottling grocery side, which can usually be really tough. But what the carrier said is they've really improved their people, their receivers, and they're respectful to drivers.
Yeah, they are. And then we've got another repeat for the 5th year in a row.
That's a
We've
lot.
got Tyson Foods. So understands the obstacles faced by carrier and works with them in their partnership to understand and be almost empathetic to those conditions that happen, because a lot of times it's outside the driver's control.
You know, and the last one on here, great team. I've met them, especially in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
I've been bumping into these guys all the time. It's the team over at Univar Solutions. Congratulations, Univar Solutions. You're repeating for your 2nd year in a row on here as a shipper of choice. You know what people called out about you? Because I think there might be a Univar person here or two. They said you have great carrier kickoff meetings. So when you start the a lot of times, you sign up with a company and then like, okay, what now?
Yeah.
They actually bring you in, they onboard you, they have carrier kickoff meetings, and they give you access to key leadership, and it says they have fantastic load planning, which means that the drivers don't have to wait long.
Yeah, they were on Freightonomics yesterday with me and Zach Strickland, and honestly highlighting how challenging the chemical space is, and how having those drivers and treating their drivers like the training that they go through and all these things, it's extremely important to them, but it's also extremely important to their drivers.
Now, Tony, before we give up this stage, and thank you all for joining us at the Shipper of Choice, congratulations to the 25 winners. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations to all of you who took home a Shipper of Choice award. But my last question for you is, who wasn't on this list that you think we'll see next year?
I'll go, just based on where we saw the wait times, I'll put Home Depot. And I only say that is because they had been on it before. This year they weren't, but you had seen an improvement overall from the lead times or the wait times in home improvement retail. So that would be one I would look for this time next year. So thank you, TriumphPay, for sponsoring Shipper of Choice. We know how important it is overall.
Thank you so much,
TriumphPay, because great stuff.
Shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
And to summarize, real simple, right? Be nice to the drivers, pay on time, have some decent facilities, and don't make people wait around.
Yeah, it really is easy. So just
pretty easy.
Keep on doing that. So that does it for Shipper of Choice. Right now, we'll lead into our next fireside chat. It will be with Craig Fuller, FreightWaves CEO, and Jonathan Hoffman from the Citadel.
Let's give it up. Take care.